Right.
We are live.
We're live. We're good, Israel. I'm sorry.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Weisburn Unified School Board meeting. You know, on everyone's mind is coming back to school in the fall, and I just wanted to speak to that for a couple minutes. Our priority as a board is to bring our students back to the classroom as soon as it is safe to do so. Our priority is to have a situation where the students, the teachers, and families are safe. And if we don't feel that's the case, then remote learning is an option for starting. As Dr. Silvers has sent out a letter, that is a possibility. And also tomorrow, Governor Newsom is speaking on this subject to the state. We wanted to wait for some of that direction as well. And we hope to have a letter out by next week, approximately around July 24th, giving more clear direction as to where we'll be in the fall. That'll give our families and parents an opportunity to plan for the fall. Okay, anybody else want to comment on that? Dr. Silvers?
I'll do it in my comments.
Okay, thank
Do
you.
we need to do the pledges?
Thank you very much, Joe. Eileen, would you do us the honors?
Please stand. Hand on your heart. And ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Sorry, as I bring up my agenda here, folks. When do we need a motion to approve the agenda?
So
Yes,
moved.
please.
Moved by Neil. We have a second?
A second.
Okay, you want to call the question, Wendy?
Yes. Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Caneda,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Mora.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. From the public, in accordance with bylaw 9323, individual speakers will be allowed 3 minutes to address the board. Wendy, do we have open comments?
I do. I have 3 comments this evening. The first comment is Kelly Schumacher. Regarding the proposed upgrades to the Cabrillo school site, our staff has been requesting different locks for our gates, something more akin to the 138th Street school gates, where a key is required to enter the gate and a push bar on the inside for easy exit in an emergency. Is that something that is included in the master plan? If not, I know the Cabrillo staff would appreciate if it were added. Thank you for all your work to make the needs of all stakeholders addressed in the plan and for all your time and thought about this. The next one is Daniel Barber. This is a comment regarding the recommended 2020 school year presented at the last board meeting. For those families who will not allow their children to return to any face-to-face school time or to participate in any hybrid classes during the 2020 school year, I would like to have an understanding regarding how 100% distance learning will take place this school year, how to sign up for it, and what it will look like. My understanding is that when the last survey was done, as much as 30% of parents who responded stated they would not allow their child to participate in any face-to-face learning this year. As such, I would like Weisburn to spell out what 100% district learning will look like. Again, my family will not be participating in any face-to-face time in school or on-site this 2020 school year. I need to have a full understanding as to what Weisburn will be offering in terms of distance learning, how I can register for this alternative as soon as possible, and if 100% distance learning will not be offered by Weisburn, what the process is to have my daughter transferred out of a Weisburn school district to a district that will be offering 100% district learning. The last comment is Dee Dee Zerbel. Dear Dr. Silvers and members of the Weisburn Board of Trustees, thank you for your research, discussion, and dedication to the current reopening concerns for our school district for the 2021 school year. I understand that teachers have been sharing their views with both your team and other concerned stakeholders regarding this important decision. In early June, I shared with my principal that I would volunteer to teach in my classroom in the fall with a hybrid model. Now I am not comfortable with doing so. The COVID-19 numbers are exponentially higher than when we closed our sites in March. I consider myself a knowledgeable veteran educator. I want nothing more than to start this new school year with kindergarten children on site. However, at this time, I urge the members of the board to keep a virtual learning model in place until a safer climate prevails. In the interest of brevity, I acknowledge the other devoted teachers have already presented reliable research, quotes, and statistics to you all, so I will refrain from doing so. Please consider continuing the virtual model for the health and safety of all of our community members and their extended families. That's it.
Thank you, Wendy. All right, moving forward from the board, Joanne?
Sure, thank you, Israel. Excuse me. I want to thank Dee Dee Zerbel for her letter, Kelly Schumacher for her comments in this time, but we also received a lengthy and very well-written letter from Kelly Schumacher during the last week or so regarding distance learning, regarding her commitment and the teacher's commitment, as Ms. Zerbel pointed out as well, the teacher's commitment to learning and to really everybody's preference, of course, would be to just go back to school and not have these problems to solve. And of course, we all know that's not reality. So we do have to accommodate the environment that we're experiencing. And I appreciate the teachers' concern and their time to write these letters that were thoroughly researched and well commented. So thank you very much, both to Kelly, to Dee Dee, and to the other teachers that have written us, and to Liza Downer, who I know has given a lot of extra time to work with Blake and the teachers as well to understand the situation that we're in right now and try to figure out the right way to proceed. So my comments are to our community and to say thank you for your patience. Thank you for your cooperation. Understand that we treasure this community. We treasure the students and our staff and want everybody to come through this pandemic educated and healthy and safe. So that's our goal. And please want everyone to know that we're working very hard to make that our reality. So, thanks.
I think you're on mute, Israel.
Thank you, Joanne, Ms. Caneda. Mr. Martinez, go ahead.
I think I just want to echo Joanne's comments. I think that was very well said. And I also want to just thank the administration, the staff for all their hard work. This is not easy work. And I certainly appreciate the comments from staff, the parents, really the entire community. Just know that we are trying to ensure a safe environment for students and staff. And that's our first priority of order. So I think Joanne said it eloquently. I don't think I have anything further to say. One quick comment, though, if we could possibly take into consideration Ms. Schumacher's concern about the locks. If we can do that sooner and not necessarily have to wait for the facilities master plan, let's consider doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Dr. Goldman?
Thank you, Mr. Mora. Good evening, everybody. I also want to thank everyone, the parents, the teachers, students I've heard from who have talked to us about this very difficult question about opening schools, reopening schools. I want to also acknowledge Mr. Barber. Thank you for your comment. Dr. Silvers, perhaps you can address that in your comments about our our plans relative to distance learning among all options. I do want to also mention that we know through our research, I want to actually also compliment not only the cabinet and the administration, but also my cohort on the board here, my peers on the board. We are taking this incredibly seriously. We have spent hours in off conversations trying to figure this out. I know there's different perspectives here. We're trying to honor and listen to all those perspectives, but I do think we can all come to, all sides can come to an agreement that we have now realized the incredible value of teachers. So I think that's a unifying force that brings us together. Some of the issues that are before us and that are on the minds of folks include the risk and fear of infection, spread of infection with asymptomatic students, teacher impact and health concerns, childcare concerns, financial impact on families, and especially those who must find childcare, impact on social and emotional well-being of students, parental toll, financial concerns and constraints, the need to run simultaneous virtual, hybrid, and school and at-school curriculums potentially. What happens if someone gets sick, et cetera, et cetera. Again, we're all taking this very seriously. It's times like these that I think it's vitally important that we have a set of guideposts, guardrails, core beliefs to help us guide, which I think it's really relevant that we're having a first read on our 5 assurances tonight. As has been mentioned by my peers, safety is our first responsibility, and it's the #1 pillar on our model. So I ask us to look at that seriously. I think that's very useful in guiding our decisioning. And just to the whole community, we're taking this very seriously and using safety as our first priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Goldman. I don't think I can add much more. You guys said it very well. And I'll continue with the agenda. Thank you. From the Chief Business Official, Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Let me share my screen. I wanted to give the board an update on the anticipated, what we've received in one-time federal funds and what we're expecting to receive. So let me open this up. Can you all see my screen?
Not yet. It says has started screen sharing, but oh, there it is. It just popped.
Okay. So so this is the one-time funding that we have received or expecting to receive. How much it means, what the description of the funds can be used for, and the expiration dates. So the first pot of money that we're expected to receive is this first one, this Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, or ESSER fund, which is part of the CARES Act. It was distributed to, or it's going to be distributed to LEAs based on how they receive their Title I funds. Very broad description on how you can use these funds. We can use the funds from March 13th of 20 through September 30th of 2022. And we're expected to receive just over $240,000 in one-time funds. The state also gave us some money. California Senate Bill 117, and it was $100 million for California. Description is maintaining nutrition services, cleaning and disinfecting facilities, purchasing PPE equipment, purchasing materials to provide students with distant learning opportunities. There's no expiration on these funds, and it was just over $42,000. Now here, the main bulk of the funds are actually federal funds, and it's the Learning Loss Mitigation Funds, LLMF, and they gave this to us in 3 different ways. This first one is based on students with disabilities, and here's what you can use these funds for. Number 1, student learning supports, which is pretty broad. The second thing you can use for is general measures that extend instructional time for students. You can also use the funds to provide additional core academic support for students who need it. And lastly, provide integrated services that support teaching and learning, such as student and staff technology needs, mental health services, staff professional development, and student nutrition. And we're expected to receive about $571,000. The next LLMF funds were based on supplemental and concentration accounts. Same uses of funds, and this used to be about $492,000. And then lastly, this other big pot was based on Prop 98 funds, so how we receive our LCFF funding. And this is also from March 1st, 2020 through December 30th, 2020, $335,000. So just over $1.2 million is expected to be spent by December 30th of this year. There is a lot of advocacy going on in both the state and the federal government that would extend this timeline, which we would welcome very much. It's $1.2 million to use before December 30th I'm sure we can do it. It's a big ask, but I'd rather be thoughtful and more calculated in how we spend these funds than rather just rush to spend them. And so that's what we're expecting to receive.
David, did you have
two more items. The staff and I are working to close out the 1920 books. We'll have that by the end of August so that we can bring it to the board, our unactuals, for a adoption in September. And then also working on the 45-day revised budget, which we'll bring back to the board for adoption in August. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the Director of Student Support Services.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. As we prepare to come back to school, what that may look like, whether it's hybrid or distance, one of the things that our department has been looking at is specifically addressing mental health needs of both our students and staff, and looking at how we would provide supports to them, whether it's distance or hybrid. knowing that there are things that we're going to have to address as students begin the school year. And so that has been a priority for our team. And we've been looking at different counseling models, as well as a sustainable support network for, once again, both staff and students, to ensure that we are all in a healthy space as we come back to the school year. So that has been a priority for us.
All right. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, thank you so much. Oops, here we go. From the Assistant Superintendent Educational Service, Dr.
Hi. Thank you, President Mora. Good evening. I'm happy to report tonight that after over a months-long research project and looking into different programs that will support our students and teachers in the area of distance learning, we've been able to narrow it down to a number of programs that we think can afford equity and support our teachers' great instruction should we remain on distance learning or even hybrid. This Monday, our guiding coalitions from each school will come together to review the programs together. All staff have been given demo links and surveys for these programs to look at on their own. But the guiding coalitions will come back on Monday to confer by grade level and by site to look at all the programs and then share their thoughts and ideas. They'll meet again on the following Thursday, then to come up hopefully with a recommendation for the district on which program would address the most essential skills and needs of our students while being engaging and rigorous at the same time. So we're really looking deeply at these programs with our staff, knowing what we know now after our work last spring and where we're headed to in the fall. We think we're in a good position to make some good decisions. And that's my report. We'll have more for you to come.
Thank you, Dr. Harbeck. Just a comment, and please reach out. Thank you to Sarah Nitsos, you and the team for the work here. I know it's been a arduous process and very well done. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. From our superintendent, Dr. Silvers.
You're on mute, Blake.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mora. I just want to share that over the last couple of days, the LA Times has reached out to us to discuss the specifics behind the name change of formerly known as Peter Burnett Elementary School to the placeholder name of 138th Street School. I do expect a news article to be released in the coming days. Along those lines, Wendy's done a lot of work thoughtfully starting to map out a 2-month plan that would include a community advisory committee, conversations with the board, and then ultimately a final name change for 138th Street School. While we did hope to open the school year with a new name, the reality of our current situation and circumstances and the time that we're going to need to get ready for the upcoming school year has made this process a bit slower. We'll get there. I hope to have a proposed timeline to present to the board at the next board meeting. But I do want to thank Wendy for putting time and basically taking a look at what other school districts have done to change a name. I want to share that although we knew the circumstances were fluid and changing fast just a week ago when we met with the board, the speed really picked up over the last few days. I want to share that with the board and the general public, that our team has been diligent in staying abreast of the current situation regarding the novel coronavirus, while at the same time handling the news with objectivity and care. That's really important to us. Dr. Ferrer, we're lucky as superintendents in LA County to have Dr. Ferrer join us for our weekly superintendent calls. She'll continue to do so for the duration, at least of the summer, to provide updates, guidance, and support as our decision-making regarding how we reopen schools next year takes fold over the next days and weeks and months. There are 2 items to note from her update today. One would be that the community spread of COVID-19 is at its peak right now. It's higher than it was in April. And we need to ask questions as to what the impact will be to bring 1 million students back in Los Angeles County, but bring 1 million students, back to school in Los Angeles County. There's no answer, it's just a question, and it's part of what we're needing to consider as we look at our local level as well. And then number 2 is that children are not immune from the effects of COVID. And the health experts are starting to understand this. It's becoming an evolving sort of conversation among health experts that students and kids or young people are being infected by this disease, and it's causing serious illness. I've heard from families, I understand that planning for next year is critical. We all wish we had answers. We all want to bring students back to school full time and offer our classrooms to them and our wonderful teaching staff. The best I can offer right now is that we do have plans. We're operating on parallel courses as we plan, and we're looking at what next year could bring. First, we're preparing our classrooms for the return of cohorts of students. We're looking to maximize the square footage of our space of every classroom to be able to fit 15, 16, or maybe 17 desks in a room. We've engaged in planning for hybrid models of delivering instruction. I'm going to share a little bit of that in a few minutes here. And we're taking a really close look at AB 77, SB 98 to see what requirements are going to be handed down by the state or required of us by the state in statute. We know that no matter how we return to school next year, it's going to look different, whether virtual learning or some kind of in-person learning. The daily face-to-face interaction between teachers and students, though, and students and their peers is going to be a cornerstone, however that looks. Social emotional support, I agree with Dr. Dougal that social emotional support, mental health support is going to be critical. And monitoring attendance, grading, adhering to a set number of instructional minutes is all going to be the responsibility of the district, and we're going to be accountable to those minutes and to those requirements. It's going to be part of our entire accountability system. We also understand that childcare and preschool is a major concern to families, and we understand that concern. We empathize with that concern, but know that we're studying the different scenarios. We're looking at our facility space, and we're aiming to be creative in how we can solve that problem and if we can solve that problem. We're going to do our best to provide timely information, but we want to make sure it's up to date, and we want to make sure it's accurate. And we don't want to have this case where we're going back and forth. So we really want to be diligent. Tomorrow afternoon, Governor Newsom's going to provide an update, as President Mora shared, regarding school reopening at noon. Once our team is able to process that information, we're going to take the next steps necessary to continue planning and to inform our community of our next steps. In the interest of revisiting our presentation on the RAP committee and sort of framing what next year could look like, I did want to share a couple slides from our last slide deck to clarify where we are currently with planning for next year. So I'm going to do that. The LA County Office of Education did re-engage the Superintendent's Task Force today, calling it the Superintendent's Task Force on School Reopening version 2. I'm happy to share that Wiseburn has a well mapped out and flexible plan that should serve us well in the coming months. And that was very clear in the meeting today when sharing with others. So I want to thank all the staff and the community members, the board members that supported this process because I think we're really in good company. So I'm going to share my screen. Bear with me here, sorry. All right. Can you all see the screen okay? Or now, can you see the screen? Yeah, okay. So just to give an overview here, the Wiseburn Reopening Advisory Partnership, and this is a reiteration of the slides that we shared last week with some clarifications, but it was to support the ongoing health and connectedness of our community and to support our continued effort to ensure that our students are receiving high quality instruction that meets their needs. And we looked at it from 3 guiding principles: maximizing safety and health of everyone, to pose as little health risk as possible and mitigate as much of the risk as possible. Number 2 is to build and strengthen positive relationships among students, between students and their teachers, and to support academic learning and growth. And really important to look at the social, emotional, and mental well-being of our students. And the third is to contribute positively to students' motivation to engage in any type of distance learning, hybrid learning, as we support their academic growth. And so one of the things that we were asked to clarify by the board last meeting was 3 models of learning. So we're calling it, instead of, I think last time we talked about distance learning plus, and we understood that became a little confusing. So we wanted to frame it in this way. There's 3 models of teaching and learning that we're looking at and that we're considering for next year. Obviously, one is this top one, virtual learning, and that is going to be defined operationally as learning that takes place remotely 100% of the time. It could be described as distance learning, so we may interchange virtual and distance. Hybrid learning is teaching and learning that includes a combination of both in-person and virtual learning. And there would be multiple iterations of that, as I'll share in the next slide. And then we have in-person learning, which is teaching and learning that would occur in person at the physical school sites 100% of the time. And so when we look at the continuum of teaching and learning, to the far left, it's showing total distance learning or total virtual learning. And then to the far right, face-to-face. And I'm sorry I didn't change this graphic, but based on those operational definitions, we would go through 5 stages of what we would call a hybrid model. And I want to share, though, that to the far left, total distance learning will be an option for our students next year for those that choose, and or if we are put in a position where we have to make that decision based on any health orders or governor's orders. So when we're looking at the staging or hybrid models of instruction, those 5 stages that fell in between the two sort of outliers, the full face-to-face model and or the distance learning model on the left. Stage 1 would be a 3 cohort model where you would have 8 to 12 students per classroom, depending on the size and the grade level, 3 hours per day, 1 day per week. Stage 2 would be 2 cohorts, half the student body, 13 to 16 basically students per classroom, a little bit less in our primary grades, 3 hours a day, 1 day per week per cohort. So if you could see the bold-faced, and I shared this, I think at the last meeting, was that every stage, the boldface represents the change to that phase, to that stage. So in this case, we have 2 cohorts instead of 3. In the third stage, you have 2 cohorts, which is half the student body, again, 13 to 16 students per classroom, depending on grade levels, 3 hours, 2 days per week per cohort. And then stage 4, which I know from an internal conversations, this is where we want to get 2 cohorts, half the student body, again, 13 to 16 students per classroom, which would be a full day of instruction, 2 days per week. And that would be a really nice place to start once we're able to get clearance to do that and feel comfortable doing that. And then stage 5 is when we're not quite ready to bring all of our students back all of the time, but we want to start testing the waters a little bit. We're seeing numbers in the community spread of COVID dwindling, and we're able to bring all students back for 2 days per week, a full 2 days per week. And I, at one point, will want to bring this back to the board, because the good part about this staged process is it gives us flexibility to operate in between. If we all kind of know the framework and we're able to work in between the stages, it gives us flexibility to move and to go from stage 1 if we need to in the beginning to stage 4, and we actually have a framework to do so. So we may want to bring this back to the board when we make some decisions regarding what next year will look like. So this could be an operational framework for us.
Hey, Blake, I have a question. The stages that are described would apply to every school in the district, right? K through 8.
It would, yes.
Okay, so there'd be no, Anza would be on one stage, and okay, good. So the entire district would be on a stage at the same time.
Correct.
Okay, good. Thanks.
And the only caveat I would say is that the numbers are off a little bit here. We were working with, obviously generalizations. And so where you look at the 2 cohort model in stage 2 through 4, our primary grades would actually have less students. So you would only have, 11 or 12, maybe even less students in a classroom at a time, because that's just how the cohort would break down.
Okay.
And just an update of a timeline. And again, I feel like this timeline will change again, maybe tomorrow. We'll see how that goes, but we want to continue updating the public. We want to continue communicating. Obviously, I'll communicate with the board and then to our public as best possible. Tonight's board meeting, I gave a little bit of an update on the 2021 school year. We do know that we need to continue having conversations about our EDP program and preschool plans. Whereas we're not ready to share those yet. We're definitely looking at those and look forward to bringing those back to the board actually at the 23rd board meeting, should we need to call a special board meeting, which we've talked about. Finalizing reopening plans, we want to take a look at that potentially by the 23rd or 24th next week, especially once we get an idea of what the governor's message will be tomorrow. Again, taking a look in more detail at our extended day program and preschool options. And then also looking at our curriculum overview so that families understand what the difference would be between a distance learning model, a full distance learning model or virtual model, versus what a hybrid model may look like and what the curriculum would be in those 2 different models. So just a brief overview, brief timeline, and wanted to share that with the board. Are there any questions about that? That's all I have, Mr. Mora.
I just want to clarify that we do know there are so many parents that are interested in having their children at home and not to physical at school, that regardless of the hybrid model, we will be offering a distance learning model. And I wanted just to clarify that, if you would.
Absolutely. We will be offering a full distance learning model for families for whatever reasons that there may be that they can't come to school or choose not to. So Eileen, I don't know if you wanted to kind of share what that's going to look like.
Just we are looking at all the options for our teachers to use for full distance learning, and we're looking for programs that would have the ability to go both to hybrid and distance. So that should a family want to go back to hybrid or go to distance, that they could do this seamlessly. And we're engaging our teachers in this process, of course.
Any other questions? All right, Mr. Mora, that's it for me.
Thank you, Dr. Silvers. On to the rest of the agenda. General 5.1. The Weisburn Unified School District Strategic Plan Assurances / Commitments for first reading.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Joanne. Anyone care to second?
I'll second.
All right. Would anyone like to comment on any of the items or propose any changes?
I have a question. I feel very strongly this is a great move for us, again, for those guardrails, that guidepost to help us with decisioning and alignment throughout our entire district. My question for the group is what we call them. Are these assurances? Are these commitments? Are these contributions? Just any comment on kind of what we're calling these. And to that point, I wanted to just give some 3 definitions in looking these up. We're calling them, in the document, we say that we assure various things. Do we assure? Assure means a positive declaration intended to give confidence, a promise. That's an assurance. A commitment is the state or quality of being dedicated to a cause, activity, or et cetera, restricting freedom of action for alternative courses. And then a contribution is the part played by a person or thing bringing about the result or helping something advance. All are relevant. I think we should just agree on what we're calling these. Any thoughts or comments?
The board is quiet.
Can I make a quick comment?
Please, Dr. Silvers, go ahead.
So I think that, there were a lot of stakeholders involved in this process. And I do want to thank, Dr. Goldman for his support and leadership through this process. Neil, I think you probably led, 5 meetings, if not more than that, where various stakeholders, teacher groups, parent groups, focus groups got together to be able to discuss these. And I do think it would be important for those families who maybe, and parents, community members who weren't a part of that we pull them up on the screen. So Wendy brought them up, and maybe we just read through them once publicly. Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
Neil, do you want to do the honors, or you like me to do it?
It's up to you.
Why don't you go for it?
All right. At this point, we're calling them our 6 pillars. First one is safety. These are not necessarily prioritized, but I had the sense from our works that safety actually was prioritized. The rest up for debate. We assure that all stakeholders will have access to a safe learning environment, both physically and emotionally, and are assured that well-trained adults and children on campus will take reasonable actions to maintain the safety of all students. Student-centered. We assure that our instructional program and students' entire experience at school are attentive to individual students' academic and social emotional strengths, needs, and choices. We specifically assure that this commitment applies to all students, where every child is known and their strengths and weaknesses are addressed accordingly. Future ready. We assure teaching and learning that includes digital literacy, reasoning, and collaborative-based experiences in academic and co-curricular programs to strengthen students' ability to excel as lifelong learners in an ever-changing world. We commit to empower all students to love our schools with positive views and self-confidence, supported by the knowledge, skills, and attitudes to equip them for an evolving world. The commitment includes an authentic and practical approach to student learning and a priority for professional learning opportunities for staff. Community and collaboration, DEI, standing for diversity, equity, and inclusion. We assure that all members of the WUSD community are viewed as partners in education. We believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion. We assure all employees and stakeholders feel connected, involved, included, heard, and respected as integral members of the Wiseburn Unified School District community. In turn, all community members will play an active role in the district's continuous improvement. The district will continue its efforts at outreach to encourage community access to online, published, and more personalized settings to remain informed, involved, and knowledgeable about WUSD programs and initiatives. And finally, organizational strength. We assure Wiseburn Unified School District will manage the district as a whole, as well as individual school sites, with prudent and effective organizational procedures and practices. This includes appropriate and effective internal controls that are regularly evaluated and improved as needed. We assure the development of our team, and we seek to implement best practices in the vital areas required to operate the district. Wiseburn further commits to maintaining a strong fiscal position that, to the extent possible, supports the high quality advancement of our commitments in a fiscally prudent and equitable manner.
Thank you, Dr. Goldman. All right. Any other comments? Are we ready to approve this for the first reading?
Yeah, thank you, Neil. Thanks a lot for your efforts and bringing us along with these great, with coalescing our ideas and putting them in writing.
Yeah, Neil, thank you also for your hard, thank you, Neil, also for your hard work on this. I like the guideposts, as you say, if you will. I think this is a great, really great starting point. For sure for the district. And, you know, with regards to the definitions of assure and contribution, I would say I probably like assure and contribution, probably the most of the three that you mentioned there.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. All right. Do we need to call this question, Wendy or Blake, or just move forward?
So
Yes.
I'm wondering, as we do that, Wendy, if we can just bring up that planning pillars just to have the graphic up on the screen, but then yeah, we would call it, it's accepting the first reading.
And one thing that was not mentioned in the document, but is in the graphic, is the collective engage, empower, and elevate that came from quite a bit of evolution of conversation over many months of really our why. Why are we here? To engage, empower, and elevate all our constituencies, students, staff, teachers, community. We're here to raise everybody up, and that's the ways in which we do it. So thank you.
All right, Wendy, go ahead and call the question, please.
All right, Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Kaneda,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Mora.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, I'm sorry, I've lost the agenda here. All right, moving on to action items, fiscal. Would you like to do this all together, or would you like to do them one at a time?
I would like to propose all together.
Three?
Yeah.
Okay, so motion please, 6.1 to 6.3.
I would like to motion 6.1 through 6.3.
Thank
I'll
you.
second.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez and Ms. Kaneda. Any questions, comments? All right, Wendy, could you call the question, please?
Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Kaneda,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Mora.
Aye.
Thank you.
Moving on to consent items, 7.1 to 7.22. Would someone like to motion?
I would like to motion 7.1 through 7.22.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, good.
Joanne, did you want a second? I kind of interrupted you there.
I think Neil did though.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any questions or comments? All right, Wendy, you want to go ahead?
I
Sorry,
think
Mr.
Blake
Mora,
had a comment there.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. I do want to just call out item 7.11, 7.11, and just share thank you to the board for allowing us to bring on our nurse for more hours. So we'll have almost a full-time nurse in the district. And then obviously there's no better time than to have that now. So I just wanted to call that out and thank the board for the support with that.
Thank you, Dr. Silvers. All right, Wendy, if you could call the question, please.
Yes, Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Canetta,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Mora.
All right, moving on to personnel items, 8.1 to 8.6. Motion, please.
I'd like the
Motion.
Oh, I'd like the second. I'd like the second, 8.1.
All right, thank you, Ms. Caneda and Mr. Martinez. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
I just want to say I'm glad to see Kevin Cornett ratified here as the interim assistant principal for Dana. I think that's a great add, and appreciate his willingness to take on the position, and look forward to his many contributions, which we know will happen.
And also to
Thank you.
acknowledge the resignation of Kathy and thank her and wish her well.
Here.
Mr. Moore, I wanted to, 12 years of working for Wiseburn, definitely hasn't gone unnoticed. So I also want to thank Kathy and congratulate her on retirement. I also want to send a special, congratulations and certainly support for Kevin Cornett as he's going to help Kiana and over at Dana Middle School. And definitely really excited to work with him and really proud of that choice and our ability to be able to bring Kevin on in the administrative role.
I would also like to point out to the community that we're increasing the hours of the district nurse for the upcoming school year. And I think that's an important contribution to the safety of our students and our staff as we go forward. So I think I just want to make sure the public knows that's part of this motion. And it does increase the hours for the district nurse. And I think it's obviously very timely.
Thank you, Ms. Caneda. All right, Wendy, could you call the question, please?
Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Canetta,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez,
Aye.
and Mr. Mora.
Aye. All right, upcoming dates and events. We have a special board meeting next Thursday, July 23rd, 6 p.m. is closed, and then 7 p.m. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, and then the next regularly scheduled board meeting would be Thursday, August 20th. Any other events anyone wants to talk about? No?
We have a second closed, right?
We do.
We do.
About 10 minutes and we start up again at 8 p.m. Would that be fair?
Perfect.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody, very much. And thanks, everyone in the community who joined us. We appreciate it very much. Everyone
Thanks
have
Good night.